put all this effort to put really smart people, probably expensive people, into the seats below you. You know, the right people in the right seats. You gotta get rid of the, like, as a CEO, I'm going to jump in and solve every issue. It's more talk to them, lead them to their, you know, to help them think through it. So don't call a meeting. What's the problem? Here's what we're going to do. You know, more like, hey guys, like, talk me through it. Like, that's probably all of us. And I still do it myself. I got it. I put these people in the seat for a reason, empower them to be successful. That's the way you can delegate yourself out too, is continuing to empower your team to be successful. If you're always solving the problems, you're never going to delegate yourself out.
Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop. Amir from the agency and Jimmy from SaaS. John has an Android, but give him a pass, cause he's an operator building brands like a carpenter. And that's Brian, he is the marketer. Like I said, this the ASOM Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the ASOM Pod, a show about perspective from the eyes of an agency, SaaS, operator, and marketer focused on the D2C, e-commerce, and retail space. All right, guys, I want to start by introducing, we've got another special guest in the room, but before I introduce him, let's go around the room, make sure everyone knows who the hosts are here today. Starting off to my left here, I've got John Roman, the Android-loving survival king. What's up, John? Your mind blown yet?
That's me. Yeah, this has been great episodes.
Yeah,
I'm stoked about this one. Kevin and I have been friends for, I don't even know how long. Like
2018?
Yeah,
2019?
27. Yeah,
Some old Sub-Summit days.
yeah, long time.
Yep.
Old days there. And then to my right over here, I've got the, what are we calling you now? The president of Bosnia?
I'll take
He's
anything.
one of three presidents.
One of the fourth and overthrower of all three presidents. Also the mayor of Chicago, the second most motivating person in the world next to Curtis, and Chicago lover. How you feeling, man?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm very excited. And then over here, I've got Brian McDonald, the second funniest guy on LinkedIn now. He has also been dethroned too.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of dethroning here today. And he's the
I
self-proclaimed.
feel like with Curtis asking Walter all those questions, is he about to dethrone me too?
Probably. Yeah. Walter's new boss is Curtis. Sorry, but
It was a good run.
it's a good run. Walter, R.I.P. But the reality is, what's that called again? Yes, King of Meats, second funniest dude on LinkedIn.
King of Meats.
What's up,
Yeah,
buddy?
I'll take that. Good. I mean,
Back to King of Meats.
Yeah,
Prince of
hopefully.
dog food. You want to
Yeah.
be the Prince of dog food?
no, it's okay.
No,
that's okay.
No, I'm just looking
He
forward
said,
to.
no. I'm the only
No.
prince in this room.
No.
All right. And my name is Jimmy Kim. I'm the coolest guy in this pod here today. I'm also the moderator. But really, the real star here today is we've got Kevin Tighe.
Tighe.
Close. Okay.
Yeah, close enough.
I mess up names. I can't remember names. I'm terrible with it, so I apologize. But
All good.
he is today the VP of Growth of BUBS Natural. Previously, though, he was the founder and CEO of Beachly Brands, which was acquired, which was a leading subscription retailer in the beach apparel and accessory world. With that being said, I thought what was cool was you were born in Washington, D.C. How long did you live in D.C.?
All through high school. And then
Maryland or?
Yeah, Maryland.
What part of Maryland?
Potomac.
Yeah, I grew up in Gaithersburg.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
about
we have a lot
15,
of
20 minutes away.
Californians are former East Coasters.
Oh,
that
yeah.
wanted to run away from the government, and like you, very
In the-
entrepreneurial. And
in the winter. You got to run away from the winter.
And
the
you know,
summer.
DC market is all about government workers and
Yep.
9-to-5s, and that drove me crazy. That's where I moved away from there, and my parents are still out there. But I thought that was cool when I saw that.
And there's
Yeah.
so many. Eric, like we've gone through.
Oh yeah,
Ryan
Eric was
Hogan.
from Olney.
Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, he's from
Oh.
Olney,
That's
which
so
is
weird.
like really only people who know Maryland would know
So
what
random.
that is.
Three.
Yeah,
Marylanders in our-
exactly.
in our
Isn't that
crew.
weird? And I
Yeah.
knew a lot of other ones. I had a neighbor and a different person
Huh.
and so forth. So anyways, you've been in e-commerce for 20 years here in digital marketing,
Yep.
e-commerce subscription, an entrepreneur. You're a mentor. You're a nonprofit volunteer. You're obviously a passionate entrepreneur, but you've done a lot of different things. And today's episode, guys, I want to talk about something that I don't think anybody talks about really, which is something very unique that Kevin has done, which is to make the shift from founder to employee ultimately, and what that shift really meant and what it did. But before we go into that, Kevin, I want to start with your story.
Sure.
I want to talk about Beachly. What happened, man? Tell us about your story. Tell us about where you went from that, and let's get a little background information on you.
Yeah. So you already touched upon. Grew up on the East Coast. Moved to California for college. Started my first business while I was in school at USC. It was called campusgossip.com. That was my
I didn't know
first,
this.
yeah,
Campus gossip.
yeah. I kind of I keep that one down on the DL sometimes.
Yeah.
But it
That's
was
great.
a UGC site back in the early days for college kids, campuses all over across the country. It was we had a lot of fun, learned a lot. It was a little more scandalous than I would like than it was meant to be, but that got me into just learning all about the internet, the blogging world, and then eventually to e-commerce, because we had amassed a large audience that we were trying to monetize, and eventually products was one of the ways that we were learning how to do that. And then simultaneously I started digital marketing agency to market brands to the college market, so I could leverage that big audience that we had built through Campus Gossip. Did not like the agency world, so sorry, Amer. Props to you for for being in it now. But I just in my 20s was doing the classic, like starting so many businesses, screwing most of them all up. Learned a lot along the way, had some successes, mostly failures, and eventually that led, I think, 8 years later, 6 years later or so, down to when I started Beachly. I'd gotten my ass kicked on my previous startup where we were doing e-commerce for influencers, and we were pretty early on. Actually, the model has worked really well now with other brands, but we were a little early and had some execution issues.
What year was that roughly?
And that was like 2014,
Okay.
2015.
Yeah.
It's the right idea. You were just early.
Yeah, early, and I think definitely some execution issues there
Sure.
as well to put on myself. But we were early in the game. But that I was that company was, I was trying to save it. It was on its last legs. I was in a meeting trying to raise some cash, and during that meeting, I was in an office. It was in LA. His office was off of Melrose, and there was this music blaring from a room in the back, and I kept looking over the shoulder, and he's like, hey, check this out. There's a startup I just invested in. He opened the door, and it was this big room filled with, they hired TaskRabbits for the day,
Okay.
and they were packing subscription boxes, and it was Loot Crate. Do you guys remember that one? The
Yeah.
subscription box for the Comic-Con crowd. They had, they had a big rise and
They had
crash.
They got up to what, 600,000 active? At
Yeah,
one
something like
point?
they were number one on the Inc. 500, and
Huge.
They had branched into MLB and to
Yeah,
all
they
sorts
licensing
of licensing. Yeah, that's
everything.
how they grew it. And but that was my first exposure to that subscription box model, and I just remembered for some reason that stuck with me. And that company I was trying to raise capital for ended up shutting it down, and I took a trip to Hawaii to clear my mind, and I was kind of over startup world, and then I reconnected with the beach and surfing and that lifestyle that I really loved. I was previously so burnt out from the last startup that I came back to California, and I was like, you know what? I got one more in me. I'm going to do one more, and let's see how it goes. And I started, but I was like, I want to build it around the lifestyle I love. I don't want to be, my previous office was in Hollywood. I was in traffic all day. I was working, I would barely see the sunlight in the winter. It was not fun. So I was like, I want to build this one around the lifestyle I love, work with people that, I want to be around. And I started racking my mind around different business models. And eventually I kind of remembered the one, what was that model where I was like, that seemed interesting. I saw it. And at that point, Birchbox was massive.
Yeah.
Loot Crate was at its peak. And I'd seen how all those worked really well when you had a passionate audience to market to. When you combine that model with that audience, oh, that seems really interesting. Like the recurring revenue, who doesn't love that?
Right.
And and I wasn't great at e-commerce then, but like I definitely had developed a skill set for that in digital marketing at that time. So I decided, I was like, no one's brought the subscription box model to the action sports world, and I was like, I'm going to start with focusing on surfing and beach culture. So started working on the business model, took it to some professional athletes I knew in the space, partnered with a great guy named Mark Healy, a big wave surfer from the North Shore, and we came together to launch it. And at first it was really, we focused on gear. It was really cool. Sometimes really like dive knives, dive masks, leashes for surfing, like anything. The goal is to get people on the water. Loved it, but it was super niche, and margins on gear like that on hard goods are terrible.
Right.
So we did that for about 6 months, and we're like, hey, got our got a taste for the business model, but we noticed the gear itself is very polarizing. People would love it or hate it. They all thought it was cool, but they were like, I just surf. I don't want to go under the water. I don't need a dive mask. But the one thing everyone loved was apparel. Whenever we did board shorts, hats, sunglasses, everyone loved that. So we went back to the drawing board and we said, all right, let's relaunch this and we'll focus more on beach apparel. So we launched it under a new name that was more encompassing just to the surf audience. There was a stat at that time that there were about 2 million surfers in the world. I don't know how valid that was, but there were about 50 million people that bought clothing from surf-related brands. So, obviously it's a much, much bigger aspirational market. So we launched that into the men's space, started getting some good traction right away, and customer acquisition was good. We were doing a monthly box, but from day one, we had women reaching out on the ads, commenting like, why don't you have a women's brand? And, I was doing the buying, I was doing the customer service, I was, doing everything. I was like, I had no idea how to buy women's clothing at that time. So put that in our back of our mind. And, the business was growing and, a nice clip. We had just hit $1 million in ARR, like, I don't know, a year or two later. And which, was fine. It was, it was starting to turn into a real business. But then I decided, all right, now's the time. Let's launch the women's. And I threw up a landing page. I did the photo shoot myself. I went to a surf shop, bought a bunch of women's clothes and gear and use that in the photo shoot, and we launched. And I was like, oh, maybe if we, put $5,000 into an ad spend, and if our CAC is like $80, whatever, I was like, there's something there, and I'll be happy, and we'll continue to focus on it. We launched it, and the first day I log into Ads Manager, I'm checking it out, and we had a CPA of $20, no discount. We were offering no discounts on $105 AOV. And it was just going gangbusters off to the races. And within, it took a month for it to eclipse our men's box. So we quickly shifted. I started out with the idea of having this badass men's brand selling surf and dive gear to selling women's clothing, women's beach apparel to women all over the United States. So it was a weird way how we got there, but from there we just leaned into the women's, and you continue to grow,
and the men stuck around. It just wasn't.
We kept it. I didn't spend $1 on marketing on it. Again, we were just focused on where the money was. Company was small as far as resources. The churn was so low compared to like the men. Men are harder to get, but they stick around. Once we once we like something, we're in it. So it was pretty interesting to see how how long it took for that men's box to churn. So we kept it just in case we wanted to circle back, but we just had never gotten back around to it.
Yeah.
Competitor data, right at your fingertips. That's a Particle has, so don't think of it. Genie in a bottle to grant you a bigger wish. Hungry for more? They'll serve food on a bigger dish. Provide an AI analyst for all the trends. Stop guessing, start winning, let them be your friend. Track retail sales to your advantage. They're a genie in a bottle. Your wish is granted. Are you tired of relying on guesswork when it comes to pricing your products or understanding your competitors? Meet Particle, the AI-powered data platform built for modern e-commerce brands. With Particle, you'll get real-time insights, competitor analysis, and pricing intelligence. Whether you're scaling your D2C brand or optimizing your strategy, Particle helps you make smarter decisions faster. Check out particle.com today and tell them Awesome sent you.
That's so interesting. So I had the opposite reaction where we went to women's and it was so hard that we quit women's and went stuck with men. But to your point, the reason was we looked at the retention numbers of when they like your shirt and it fits well, they'll just keep ordering over and over again forever. And I do that now that I've gotten older and I look back, of course, like hindsight's 2020, but when I go back, I always look at that and I'm always like, yeah, like I like something, I'm going to keep ordering something, and I continue to order something.
Like what True Classics. I love their t-shirts and that's all I order now.
Dude, I have
that's it.
50 of them, all black.
And I get them all logo now with our gear.
Oh, you and the logo.
We talked about that.
This is True Classic.
That's a True Classic.
How do you get it though with the logo?
We just have it in-house.
Oh, so you buy them.
Oh, you bought
and
a
then you
printing
logo.
machine.
Yeah.
A screen printer.
We have a Cricut at the office.
Yeah, it's not very hard to do once you have it. So tool's easy.
Huh.
Yeah. We would notice on the ads, on the women's ads, we would see they would tag 3-4 friends and be like, OMG, we need this. I would never tag and be like, Brian, John, bro, we gotta
get
It would never
So
happen.
true.
It's true. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So we just saw, especially I think that was 2018, 2019. So
Yeah, men are so like
That's back in
if
the-
I'm sitting next to you, I'm like, dude, what shoes are those? Go on, play the thing. Dude, what shoes are those?
Travis Matthew.
Dope. And that's it. That's what men do.
Yeah.
That's how we share.
Yeah, this
is
That's
true.
how we share it in person when I see something
I might
that you're
Google
wearing.
it. Yeah.
You may Google it, you may not, but
Yeah.
you're so spot on with that.
My,
so
my
true.
wife always makes fun of me because he said men are so weird because like, yeah, to your point, how you said it, like, he's like, so, you guys hung out with Brian and John and Amara, like, how's their wife doing? I'm like, how's the kids doing? What's Brian doing? What'd you guys do? I don't know. And, like we just as men, like we just have a tendency to act and we don't overshare, right?
Yeah.
Communication's not
it's
not
so
the
true.
strongest suit of men and friendships, but we have a great time. We did a lot of fun stuff, but like that's the answer a lot of times.
So how long did you grow Beachly Brands for?
Yeah, so we started working on the concept in 2014, launched that first MVP in 2015. 2016 is when we launched the men's apparel one, and 2018 was the women's.
Okay.
Ended up selling it in 2023. So once after launching the women's, we were, pedal to the metal.
Yep.
All through COVID, then post-COVID, iOS 14, and then it was around 2022, we kind of hit an inflection point where, I'd been at it for, I guess it's like the 7-year itch, everyone says,
Yep.
and I guess it's, it's real. So I'd been at it there. We'd hit 8 figures, in my mind. I was like, okay, this is a good business. I was like, what am I going to do with it? If we're going to scale, I need to raise money. Like it wasn't, these businesses are capital intensive, and it was definitely not profitable enough to be able to at that size, just to cover churn and to continue to grow. And also, customer acquisition costs were definitely much higher than they used to be. So to really scale, I need to either raise money or I potentially need to sell. And in my mind, I was like, we're 8 figures now. Like, I could probably sell this thing. You always just, when you're starting up and you're hearing, that's still a tiny business, but you think,
but it's meaningful.
It's meaningful. There's real product market fit. And I was like, maybe I can sell. I just had my first kid. I was like, maybe the timing's right. So I hired a consultant. He was an ex-investment banker to go out and do kind of a blind market check for me. So what he did is he built a bunch of prospects of brands that could acquire us or could invest, and had a bunch of conversations for me. He would send them a 1-pager, not tell them who we were. And he was more just like, hey, I'm, coming in from a friendly angle and just saying, we're collecting data. Is this a company you would be interested in? And if so, what was the size? What EBITDA would you need? Like, trying to get all the info for me. And I found that the real reality was like, no one gave a shit. Like low 8 figures was not like, no one cared.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I need to, I was like, all right, some people care, but the pool of buyers who are going to pay top dollar and give you the cleanest deal. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So I was looking at the market. It was right at the time. I should have done this in 2021. I would have been able to people were giving out money like candy to a baby, but I was focused on just growing at that time and building the business. So right at that time, the market had shifted. The offers we were getting for funding were it was like a 0.5x revenue for fundraising. I was like, that's not sexy whatsoever. I'm going to heavily dilute myself and have to work my ass off to scale this to the size to get the right exit that we need. And, who knows, how risky that may or may not be. I had designed a pivot for the business. I think the subscription box market had a big shift too and became a lot more challenging. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to pivot this business a bit and really scale it. And then while I was looking to raise capital, I ran in, to a group that was doing a roll up, and they, were interested in businesses of our size, and we started having a lot of conversations. It was a long process, and eventually we, came to a deal, and we closed the deal in June of 2023, and that's when I went from entrepreneur and CEO to technically to being an employee. So that was a big shift.
And they had their previous acquisition was Birchbox, right? Or was Birchbox after?
Yeah, they had just closed Birchbox right before us, and then they closed another one called All True in the space. Yeah. So they they did 2 distress deals, and then we were the first non-distress deal. They were like, all right, we need to bring an intact team in to kind of help,
run everything.
Yeah, and run this, and so that's how it came together.
So in that deal, was it? And I don't know if you want to share this or not, but it's you were doing a little bit over 8 figures. What was the churn rate on your subscription box, roughly, give or take?
Yeah, it was solid. I mean, on average, you're looking at people were staying for around 6 orders. We had pretty good churn. So we would lose, first box churn was high. We lose probably around, or as always, it was like around 20 on the first, and then that would drop pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and once they made it past 1 year, man, those cohorts were really strong. We had that original cohort when I sold still had, years later, still had 30% left in it.
Wow.
Which is really cool. Yeah, there were some of those numbers were.
And you were first order profitable when you were doing it? You were mentioning earlier, or no?
We were through 2020, and then after iOS 14,
iOS 14 will always forever live in every marketer's mind.
Any of us, I know when that word comes up,
it's a little cringe. 14.5, you got to get real specific. 14.5, it gets really cringy.
It changed everything.
Yeah, it changed a lot of things. Yeah,
it really did, and we were. I mean, once we were starting to scale, I think we were closer. It was like box 2, and we're box 2 profitable, which, I mean, that's 3 months. So that's fantastic.
Yo, OmniSend is back with some new swag. AI is now in the mix. Yeah, you heard that. Smarter and better. Let AI decide. Personalize every line. Take your brand worldwide. How about 24/7 support? MJ of basketball, but email to sports. So sit back, relax, watch the magic unfold. Let the folks at OmniSend get your story told. Tired of staring at blank pages? OmniSend AI doesn't hit you with writer's block. Their new AI writes your emails, personalizes content, and builds customer segments instantly. Just whisper who it's for, and AI figures out the rest. Join 125,000 users already winning with OmniSend's email, SMS, and push notifications. Backed by 24/7 amazing support, visit omnisend.com today.
And then when you got acquired, again, don't need to get into the details, but what did the acquisition look like? It was a roll up, so you were getting acquired into a roll up. Was it equity into the new business? Was it a cash output, or is there like a multiple that you dealt with? Like, how did you guys see that?
Yeah, it came down to a percent. It was a revenue multiple, and there was some cash and earn out component, and then equity component.
Got it.
Yeah.
And now you're not at that company anymore, right? The roll up anymore?
I am as a consultant. I stayed on for about a year, and then, decided it was a good time to just get into a new market, sink my teeth into something new. I'd been in the subscription box world for so long.
Sure.
So a friend of mine was the founder of BUBS Naturals, and we were in a CEO peer group together, and we were hearing each other's updates and the changes in our business and our path. And he needed someone to come on and head up growth, and I was like, this is a good time for change, see if I can put myself to the test, learn a new market. I wasn't quite ready to start something new yet, didn't have the right idea, and with having a young kid, maybe it's a good time just to keep working with these companies that are ready to scale, that have a lot of promise. And for me, I want recurring revenue, I want a consumable, and I want something that has really strong margins, which supplements do, and then I wanted a product that helps people.
Yeah.
So what is BUBS Naturals for everyone that doesn't know, that's listening?
Yeah, so we're a nutrition brand. Our top products are collagen. We have functional coffee creamers, electrolytes, but what I really love is every product is just designed to be top quality product. Everything's third party tested, just effective ingredients, simple. Anything
you have peptides
need, nothing
too,
you
right?
don't. Yeah, the collagen peptides is our bread and butter. And it has a really cool backstory. So the name Bub is named after Glenn Bub Doherty, who was our founder's best friend. Glenn was a Navy SEAL who laid down his life in Benghazi. So if you saw the movie 13 Hours, he was one of the soldiers that actually lost his life on the rooftop. Glenn and Sean, our founder, they were best friends. They traveled the world together. He had a real zest for life and for helping people. So Sean wanted to do something in his honor. There was the idea he wanted to start a business, and decided to name it after Glenn and weave in Glenn's ethos into the brand and into everything we do.
That's cool.
So it's really cool to have that backstory.
Yeah.
And that.
So I want to go back to the decision point, right?
Yeah.
So you're a year in after the acquisition. You're obviously thinking about the next step in life. Obviously, sound like you were kind of tired of the market that you're working in. You wanted to go find something else. You as an entrepreneur clearly knew what you wanted because now you understood A, what you're probably good or bad at,
Yep.
and B, look, I don't care who you are. The early days of starting a business are incredibly hard and it's not an easy task for most people. And you probably realized that as you kind of went into that. And so besides the business that you were looking for, what were some of the other things that went through your mind as you're thinking about that transition from going from what you're essentially, I'm the boss to I'm going to have a boss?
Yeah. I mean, it's really important to have alignment with whoever that was going to be. So when we sold Beachly, built a good relationship with the guys who acquired us. Funny side note is he was the founder of Loot Crate. So it kind of came full circle
from
with
with
that. So that was also something that was kind of weird how that came to be. But we built a good relationship, like them, they wanted entrepreneurial people, and I could tell it wasn't going to be a corporate role. It was going to be still very entrepreneurial, and a lot of that flexibility. But it was interesting to put myself in, I guess I was COO, so put myself into the operator's hat, so that the integrator role instead of the visionary. Being able to, for me, it was actually really exciting. I was like, I'm always interested in how do I become a better leader, a better CEO, and until you're not in that seat, kind of hard to tell.
Yeah,
so executive coaching and all that training can help you, but it was really interesting for me to flip the script. And so I always just was trying to be really conscious of, like, when I'm in a meeting, when I'm when I'm talking to the CEO or when someone's leading a meeting, like what am I feeling in the moment? Like, what is making me feel motivated? What's making me feel kind of down or discouraged? And I would actually take notes on that stuff and try to, I built a little log book of stuff that I can realize. So, like, when I'm back in that seat, or even just in any executive role, like, what are those types of things that can make me be better and a more effective leader? And I've learned a ton in the 2 roles I've had since then. And it's definitely helped me recognize stuff that I was doing wrong, especially, I'm like, I could definitely listen more.
Sales tax stress, let Kintsugi slide. AI in your pocket, now enjoy the ride. 9 hours saved, that's time back and play. No tax guy needed, AI clears the way. Errors cut deep, not with this plan. 98.3%, my man. Click once, integrate, white glove, you'll see. Mention awesome, get 3 months for free. Sales tax headaches? Kintsugi AI turns tax chaos into something beautiful. The smart AI monitors, files, and optimizes your sales taxes automatically, saving customers 9 hours monthly while cutting errors by 98.3%. No expensive tax guy needed here. One-click integrations and white glove support. Mention awesome for 3 months free at trykintsugi.com.
I think I would personally struggle a lot, like, not taking control.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a person who likes to take control. But I've got that entrepreneur thing where it's like, not just take control, but like run. Like, I just make the decision and run. I don't need to ask anybody. I know what the right, and I know from the gut, at least I think it is often, right? I still listen and I still take in all the things, but I run once I hear it. That's obviously got to be a different feeling because you've got to report up or report to whoever you're reporting to. So what were some of your challenges you learned about yourself?
Yeah. So and taking a step back, when I hired that investment banker to do the market check for me, he also went through a whole checklist to prepare the company for an exit. And one of the most important things, he was like, as the CEO, the business can't be relying on you. And he made it really important that you have to delegate yourself out of the seat. He's like, you should be able to go on a surf trip to Fiji and not talk to anybody for 2 weeks, and the business should run just fine. And so that was something I'd always worked on. It was really, really hard to do. And that's when, in this role, continuing to think about that once I, switched to a COO role, was I took that to heart. It's like, hey, if I'm in this role, I need to do what I need to do for the CEO to make sure he feels he can be out and do only what he can do for the business.
Sure.
However, I guess it stressed to me the importance of, I know how hard that is to let go for the CEO. So I was like, you as a CEO, you're you put all this effort to put really smart people, ideally is what you're doing. You're
Right.
putting, really smart people, probably expensive people, into the seats below you. The right people in the right seats. You gotta get rid of the, like, as a CEO, I'm gonna jump in and solve every issue. It's more talk to them,
Yeah.
lead them to their, help them think through it. So for me, trying to emphasize, listen more. Don't call a meeting. What's the problem? Here's what we're gonna do.
Right.
More like, hey guys, like, talk
That's-
me through it.
that's
Like,
me
be
right
quiet.
there,
That's
yeah.
probably all of us, and I still
Yeah.
do it myself. And I'm like, I put these people in the seat for a reason. Empower them to be successful, and that's the way you can delegate yourself out too. Is continuing to empower your team to be successful. If you're always solving the problems, you're never going to delegate yourself out. So
and they're not going to grow.
Exactly. And they're not going to feel that you trust them, which then doesn't get, you're not empowering them. So listening a lot more and asking questions and actually trusting the people below you. And every once in a while you're like, I like the thought, but no, that's not the right answer. But, generally trying to, I guess trust them and give them the power to go execute on your behalf.
And that's a hard thing for a founder or an entrepreneur.
Totally.
Very hard thing for people to do.
Before we kind of get ahead where you're going, I do have one question. You might be able to relate to this too. What have you guys sold D2C companies?
Yeah.
And I know as an entrepreneur, you sometimes see your company as your baby. You put so much time and effort into it. Did either one of you go like mentally or emotionally through challenges? Like, is this the right thing to do? Can I actually let go? Like, what did that process look
It's
like?
the founder identity you're asking.
Right? Yeah.
The identity problem challenge. That is actually a huge problem for most people.
That's a good question. I'm interested to hear what John. John, go.
I mean, I think getting to the point that we both got to where we took a deal. I know, and you and I actually I think we had like a few conversations just about that whole time period. I mean, at that point, it's the kids getting put up for adoption, right? Like you're still in their life for maybe a little bit of time, but you're out. And I think you have to accept that. Now, clearly, I didn't accept that, right? Like clearly, I lied to myself and then took the kid and ran away. But that was the thought process. But I think Jimmy nailed it, right?
Yeah.
Like
It's mental. It's a mental
tough.
challenge. It's someone who's done it too, like someone who's exited and walked away and watching the baby maybe not do the things that you wanted it to do and hope that you could see it do. It's sad almost, right? It's sad. You feel it. You have to think about it, but you also have to learn how to disconnect. I think that's the hardest thing to do and realize, to your point, it's no longer yours. You got to understand that no matter what happens, you need to understand that that's just part of life. And you made the decision as a person to do this too and accept the fact that you made that decision. And identity is a tough one, It's a really tough place to feel. And when you build as a founder often, no matter what the world thinks about you, you in your own head often thinks that that's the identity that people look at you. If that makes sense. Like that's the way I think about it. And I would love to hear what you felt when you're going through that.
Yeah, for me, I looked at Beachly was obviously, it was my baby and it was a huge part of my life. But for me, it was part of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that bigger picture is yet, but I know it was more my identity as an entrepreneur and a builder. So for me, it was a step along the way, which made it a little easier to let go, to say, hey, this is my energy. This was never going to be my last startup.
Right.
No matter what, whether if I had sold it for $1 billion, now, it would not be my last startup. So that was, I guess I'd always had that mindset. Still, of course, you go through those the issues once you give it away and you see things changing. But the other part was just making sure before closing the deal that you put enough time, answered all the questions, went through all the scenarios. I ran so many scenarios, so many numbers of like, what if I keep it and I do this? What if there's all sorts of different scenarios I ran just to make sure from a cost benefit
this was the right
standpoint that was the right move. And it was the right move.
That's very cool. So what does structure look like today? I mean, you're obviously reporting to the founder, the CEO founder. What's your team look like? Yeah,
it's I've found myself at a pretty cool company. Like I love the space where it's a company that's already has a great product, already has product market fit, and is ready to scale, kind of skipping that 0 to 1 stage. I mean, that first $1 million is
it's brutal.
It's brutal. I was like, I'm not in the mindset or the mood to go go to 0 to 1 right now, or 0 to 5. So getting something that already has a great base, and I was able to look and see where I can bring my expertise and experience and how we can scale. So we've been just pedal to metal this year, really focusing on subscription and growing the brand, launching some new products. And I found a pretty unique situation with the CEO, us having a relationship. He's very visionary, and I fit well. I can play both visionary or integrator role. And this one, I'm in the integrator role, and like we have a nice yin and yang component. So
Okay.
he brings a ton of energy and great ideas, and then I'm like harnessing them all and like, hey, let's narrow down, let's focus, and let's execute. So it's a really cool dynamic, and the company's really small. When I joined, I mean, probably 8 employees. A lot of them very young employees. So we're restructuring the team, hiring some more senior team members on, and it's kind of fun to come in like very still much startup and small enough where you actually feel a lot of ownership and you're making that impact and you're building again.
Yeah.
But not having to start from the ground up, I guess.
Got it. What
Yeah.
about the mental side of this all as you come out on the other side here? Like now it's been 2 years, right? Roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2 years later, financially, mentally, stress wise, like how do you feel about that?
Yeah. So one thing I love is not having, at Beachly at any given moment between credit cards and loans. There was, probably $2 million that I had PG'd, at
Yeah.
any given moment.
Yeah.
And I was really good about not PGing stuff, making sure, we had a huge line with Brex and using all those. But no matter what, you're still
Still
Amex,
connect,
Capital
yeah.
One, all that stuff.
Of
You have to
course.
PG. Got one of those awesome EIDL SBA loans for like $1 million that they
Yeah.
were just going like
Giving
this
away,
to anybody
yeah.
that wanted
Giving
to
away.
them. So all that stuff. So it's nice not to have that burden for a little bit. And I don't mind that burden if I'm completely in control, but with, having a young kid, and nice to not have that
Yeah,
burden.
de-risk a little.
Yeah. It's in my blood to just always obsess about the business, whether it's like obviously I
Yeah.
feel ownership about,
That's what I was.
when I was over at Retention Brands, I felt ownership, and still, with my advisory role, I feel ownership over there, and then I feel ownership with this one. So yeah, I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about CAC and and creative and problems and stuff like that. But it is nice not to worry about signing paychecks and,
Yeah.
and like all that stuff. But granted, I think that's a nice thing for anyone that's hiring. If you can hire entrepreneurial people, I think they're probably a rare breed that actually can feel that level of ownership. It's the one thing is I don't think if I was always a pure employee and never an entrepreneur, I don't think any of us here know, because we're all entrepreneurial, but like, I don't know if they ever feel, I'm sure some people do, but do they ever feel the same amount of ownership?
Yeah,
that
and
you do.
that's
Yeah.
really where I was driving towards,
Yeah.
because I think I would struggle to find ownership feelings, or
Yeah.
I would just pour my ownership feeling into it. And if I
Yeah.
do pour my ownership feeling, then I would probably try to drive a different result, or to your point, like, kind of run over everybody. That's kind of where I did. But
Yeah.
a lot of businesses, when they say I want entrepreneurial, they don't actually mean they want that. They really just want, to what you said, an emotional level of connection,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
many people who are in the employee seat don't actually have to the things that they're doing. They're just doing it for the job or the check, right?
Yeah.
And that's a challenge. It
Yeah.
really is. And I know Brian does a great job. I mean, he's not the owner, but he sits in you have a small percentage of
Yeah.
the company, but you also own and feel the emotion,
Yeah.
and you really embrace it and you live within it. It's a hard feeling to have that, and you can look at the rest of your team. Not saying that your team isn't like this, but like, I'm sure some of your team just looks at it as a 9 to 5 check.
100%.
And they don't give a crap what happens after 5 p.m. and they don't give a crap what happens until 9 a.m. when they're
100%.
back on job, right?
Absolutely.
And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with any of that. We're all designed for different things. Everybody has different reasons to be around, but it also is why people look for that type of person, because honestly, I think the founders sometimes just need that person in their life. You work with Adam, for example,
Yeah.
and you and Adam are jiving and griving. You guys are, become, and there's when he sees and feels that you are being an owner of the thing that they're doing together, there's a better relationship than when maybe he
Yes.
has
Yeah,
with
yeah.
someone else in the
Yeah.
team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important too, like even the people that we've hired, looking for those that are going to be the ones coming to you with ideas and questions and not waiting for you to tell them what to do. And I think this isn't a real stat. I like to throw around random stats that don't make sense.
The Brian stat incoming.
Right here,
alert,
Brian
alert.
stat incoming.
Yeah.
There should be a screen that pops up. But 99% of the people that you hire wait for an order, right? That's how most people are programmed. But I think there's two other people within the company that sort of have the same mindset that I do and Adam, and they're the best performers because every day they're, hey, Brian, what if we do this, this, and this? How about we do it this way? What do you think would happen if we did this? And that's a rare breed. And the term entrepreneurial is obviously not true in that regard, but it brings out the atmosphere in which employees can come to you or the CEO or whatever and come to them with ideas. Because I feel like a lot of people don't, and they just wait for orders.
Sure.
So that way they can execute what you tell them to do. And I think most companies do operate that way. But I think if you hire with that in mind, with that intent, I feel like you get a lot more done and a lot faster.
100%.
And there's
You
a
know?
mixture here too. What's really interesting that I see is like smaller teams with a founder that might be more seasoned may have better people with ownership because they release control.
Yeah.
Where a lot of smaller teams, and you mentioned that you're smaller, which is why I'm talking about this, have more control problems of letting go of that control. So they want to be the order giver, not a person that does this, right?
Yeah.
Like when I started my last company, I definitely was on the one spectrum, like control, keep involved, need to know everything that's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you hear about people who are like, I don't know what's going on. Like, even like I just ran an event and like people were like, come up to me like, where's this happening? I'm like, no idea, dude.
That's how it should be.
Yeah. And they're like, well, who knows then? And I'm like, probably Madison, probably this person, probably that person, but not me.
Yeah. Someone owns it.
Yeah.
But like you don't have
I
to
have
own
no
it.
idea.
Yeah.
I put it into the ether. I put the idea out there and then like someone's got to go own it. And that's the ownership that I gave them. And they might have not been truly entrepreneurial, but they have buy-in now because I've trusted them and given them the control and the feeling that they can own it and they deserve it, but they also understand that the outcome, and no matter whose fault it is, it's always my fault no matter what. And they understand that as well too. And there's a lot of that comes into play. So I think there's a mixture here. And what I wanted to drive out of this pod today was like, if you're making that move, right? It's not just about making the move, but it's about aligning and finding the right people and joining the right guy. And you mentioned it. I wanted this, I wanted that, I wanted this. And that comes from your season and understanding. And it's actually maturity almost as an entrepreneur to know that. And I think that's even something that I've continued to learn in my life and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I think making sure you can really believe in the company. And I can imagine if a giant corporate company had acquired us, my feelings would have been different there. I'm sure I would have probably jumped, definitely would have jumped ship from that environment. But when I did jump ship, it's like I'm obviously comfortable in this, startup world that I love coming in and growing. So finding where you align, but also just thinking about it as a step in the process. How can wearing different hats along your whole career, your journey, like how does that actually help you better?
And you're making a stronger, better version of yourself for the next.
Exactly.
Like
I was actually really excited for that option. I was like, I don't know how long I'll be in the seat, but I'm gonna learn a shit ton along the way, and it's gonna make me better.
You're just leveling up.
Yeah,
100%.
One thing I want to call out when I went through a first exit, I was pretty young, and now looking back, it's been almost 10 years since this has happened. I realized I was a really difficult person to manage because I was an entrepreneur.
I could see that too.
It's no surprise.
Are we bleeding edge or are we leading edge, guys?
But like people that are going through that, especially unfortunately, I wasn't professionally mature enough to realize what the CEO that acquired us was doing. I was giving so much to the company and I was acting like it was still mine. But when I would try to get approval for something or try to push for something, and I would just kind of get clapped back like, no, we're not doing that, or whatever, I would constantly be shut down. I was like, wait, like, you don't value me. You don't value me. And that was my mentality, but it wasn't that. I wasn't presenting because I didn't know things better for him to understand it. Like, I wanted to run like ads and do a bunch of different tests. His question was, what's going to be the ROI? I was like, I don't know. I want to test it. That's why I want to test it. But he's like, well, I need to know the ROI. And it's like, well, and we never like made progress because of it. Now, I contributed to a lot to the company, but it pushed me back more, me personally at that time, like, go start your agency again. because that's the only way you know how to build a road.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure it out there.
Yeah.
So like just to be like aware that we're not easy to manage.
No,
At least
I
I
wouldn't have
wasn't.
been able to stand that. That's where the alignment comes in. Like if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had joined an org and they were like, spend on paid, no way, or
Right.
you want to test, like, you know, and make me jump through hoops to do everything, I would lose my mind.
No,
Also, so.
I've
Yeah.
definitely felt that too, Amer. So
Yeah.
I understand what you're talking about and feeling with some of the companies. So, all right, last question here, dude.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? A startup again?
I think so. I think I got one more in me. It's
You got
not
one more?
Love it.
The spirit's still strong.
not any time, you know, a few years or so away. You know what's actually been catching my eye? You know, the Cody Sanchez,
Mhm.
the whole boring business idea.
Yep.
Like, kind of interesting as far as
I
being
think
able
this
to.
is what happens when you get older.
I know. You're right. That's something that I can delegate myself out of really easily. But like with AI, being able to, I mean, one, e-commerce is really hard to operate. So if you're
Yeah.
if you're good at operating e-com, you're
You
definitely a
can-
bit of a ninja. And a lot of these businesses
You're just
will
a
be
great marketer.
easy. Yeah, good
That-
marketer and a good
yeah,
operator. If
yeah.
you can handle these types of businesses, we're bringing in products from around the world and dealing on all the stuff you guys talk about every week on your pod.
Yeah.
So those types of businesses a lot easier to operate, wrap our minds around, and then being able to use technology like AI and things like that to really automate some of that stuff. So that's
You're watching the world and you're just kind of getting ideas, right? You're waiting for
Yeah.
that next idea to spark. And
Yeah, it's got to be. That's the one thing. Obviously, I'm, you know, got great situations and lots of opportunities right now. So it's when I do that one, it's I've set that standards of if it is in e-com, it's like, you know, those margins, the recurrent revenue, like
Yeah.
those types of things.
the things that you didn't think about in the early days.
Or like when I thought I'm like, 40 some odd % margin. I'm like, that's solid for
That's
apparel.
great.
Like, you can't
Yeah.
build a business on that unless
Yeah.
you have insane, you know, retention. But it's
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's got to be 70 margin now. You know, so with how competitive everything is, then at the very least you're still above 50 if you have to discount.
Yeah.
So that's just putting in all those qualifications and just
Yeah.
being really strict to that. But the world's changing so much with AI and like who knows what the hell the next couple of
Yeah,
years are
the
gonna
next
look
couple
like.
years might look completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when I'm trying to think, and I remember the first time you and I hung out, the first episode where I was like, and you and I have had phone calls where I'm like, man, the next thing I'm not selling a physical product.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah,
am over
because you're
physical product.
not burnt out is not the right word, but you've learned a lot of lessons and you know how hard it is.
Yeah.
So you think it's easier, but the
Yeah.
truth is, and we've all heard it, grass ain't greener
Yeah.
anywhere.
Everything's hard.
Yeah, I
Everything
mean,
really is
everything's hard.
Look at me. I've done the clothing business. I've been in retail.
Yeah.
I've gone to SaaS. I've gone now to media, and I've gone to so many different places of
Services,
it. And
yeah.
info business I've done. Dude, they're all freaking hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's no such thing as easy business. That's
No.
just the whole, you know, get rich quick kind of thought process. But the reality is they all take a lot of work.
Yep.
They all take a lot of effort. And the reality is there's only one thing, in my humble opinion, it's time. Time is the only factor that creates success or failure ultimately, and knowing when to quit and not to quit, right?
Yeah.
And that's just something that you learn over time. And I don't know. I have no idea either, right? Like, we'll see how these things go that I'm working on. They're doing all right now, but we'll see what happens over the future. So,
Totally.
Kevin, thank you, man. Thank you for making
Thank
the trip
you.
down
Thank
here.
you for
Thank
having
you
me,
for
fellas.
joining us here in San Diego. We really love the story, and I think that there's a lot of people who are probably in this situation that are listening to this pod
Yeah.
that are, maybe not very far along, and maybe they have a small opportunity to exit, and they're trying to figure out what that next move looks like. And entrepreneurially, you always want to think, just start another business, but the reality is it might not be the best decision that you can make. And the decision you can make sometimes is to step back and look and maybe become a right hand or an employee or whatever it is to a small or big business and learn, get stable, whatever that might be, right? I mean, there's a place for everybody in the world. So thank you again for being out here.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having me,
this is
guys.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. For John Roman, Brian, Amer, my name is Jimmy Kim. Thank you for listening to ASOM Pod. Like, follow, subscribe, comment below if you've got any questions or thoughts around this. Don't forget, we drop pods every Thursday. We'll see you on the next one.
Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.